welcome to Jurassic Park 3 Minute, the second Jurassic Park sequel, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And today we're back to continue the epic voyages and action of the aviary with minute 62. But before we get to that, David, looking over at Jurassic-Pedia.com, we have an article up here which pretty much encompasses the whole incident here we're watching on screen, which is the 2001 Isla Sorna incident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is actually one of our this is one of our articles that have been recently revamped by a member Trodan Formosus, and so it's got a very, very lengthy, it's got background, and it basically tells you about a little reminder about the Isla Nublar incident, the Isla Sorna incident that happened in '97. A little bit of background to remind you that Masrani Global had bought Sorna and Las Cinco Muertes in 1998, and then it gets into an incident summary where it starts off at the beginning of the movie where the boat gets attacked, and then it goes through even some of the the adventures. The Eric Kirby Survivor Adventures stuff is included in here, guys. We found that it might actually be a bit soft canon to the movies.
Yep. And
so it gives the whole list of what Eric Kirby was up to on those islands, and all the way up to where we rejoined it 8 weeks later in the movie, and then at the end there we get a aftermath and how some of the things that happened in this at this incident actually had effects that even went out so far into Jurassic World, like how Alan Grant's kind of realization of raptor vocalization became fundamental to the research that Owen Grady was doing with the Ibris project with the raptors.
Yeah, just looking through it here, it's just great to have pretty much all you need to know and all we know about not just the incident in 2001 that this sort of movie focuses on, but just everything leading up to it, and helps explain a few things we see in the film in it as well, and get a little bit of backstory there.
It's a big article, so I mean, if you're interested in basically getting the whole laundry list, head on over, take a look. Of course, the links to the other stuff in the encyclopedia as well, so that's also great.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely worth going over and checking out. Also, too, because it does take sort of all the important things from those comic series and the junior novel series, and it has it all here. In order of events and that too, which is another great thing too. There's no moving all over the timeline here. It sort of starts and goes all the way up until the people getting off the island at the end of this film.
And even past that, I mean, even mentions. Hold on, let me scroll back down. It's a big article. Like, it even mentions how it wasn't how Masrani Global bribed local officials to basically keep quiet that they cloned the Spinosaurus and the Ankylosaurus and the other illegal species, and how the Kirbys are technically guilty of multiple crimes, including involuntary manslaughter from the death of Ben, Cooper, and Nash and Udesky.
I'm just reading here about Eric getting the raptor claw too. I need to stop reading. Head over to Jurassic-Pedia.com and have a read through it yourselves. It might take a little bit to get through the whole thing, but it is a fantastic resource there for the film and the history leading into the film, and definitely worth a read. And great job to Pteranodon.
Yeah.
Pteranodon on writing all that up. I assume it would have taken a lot of work, and your efforts need to be rewarded.
Oh my God.
What is it?
It's a bird cage.
For what?
David, you've got something new in your pocket.
Yes, I do.
She's a bit big for that.
Yeah, and I don't think she's going to fit quite in my pocket. She barely fits on my desk. I got in from Entertainment Earth the Super Colossal Blue, and I gotta admit, she is technically life-size for Velociraptor mongoliensis. He's about knee tall, and she maybe not quite as long as Velociraptor, but then again, I mean, to be fair, the Jurassic Park, or especially the Jurassic World raptors, are much shorter than their counterparts. Like, for example, if the Jurassic Park raptors were proportioned correctly to their fossil record, being 6 feet long or 6 feet tall, they would be about 20 feet long, and in the course of the movie, they're about I think 11 to 13 feet long.
Mm.
But yeah, the detail on this thing is absolutely lifelike. It's amazing to see because I put it out in my backyard and I started taking some pictures of it, which I'll of course post up when this minute goes live. But I just took a picture of it and it looked like it was almost a statue standing there. You know.
I know you want to go for the Roland Mombasa fight costume or cosplay next, but with that in hand, you really need to look at maybe an Owen as well. Just the amount of people at conventions are going to be walking around dressed as Owen with the baby blue in their hands.
The especially interesting thing about it is that it's bigger. Not bigger. It's taller than the super colossal T-Rex, about the same length. But it also has more articulation. The tip of the tail rotates, and the hands rotate.
Well, the whole back section of the Super Colossal, was that rubber? Is it got any rubber in it, or is it all plastic now?
I think it's still kind of, the tail is still rubber, but the rest of it's still plastic. I don't even think the neck is plastic. It's rubber anymore.
Yeah. How are your hips and shoulders on it?
They're absolutely great on this thing. It's I already went out and of course did the classic attack pose and the classic clever girl shot and the classic raptors attacking me first person shot. You know.
Can you, with the head articulation, can you get a chest right down low to the ground and get that head to look up in that?
Sort of. I mean, you can't really get the chin touching the ground quite like you do the actual animal does in the movie, but I mean, you can get pretty close.
Just film it from above. It's all about where you take the photo from.
Yeah, I have her sitting on my dresser right now. I moved my bookshelf forward a little so I could kind of tuck the tail behind the bookshelf and basically fit her onto the dresser.
Nice. That'll be good. Can't wait to see some of the photos.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely get those posted up there when we get this minute up.
Yeah, well, the bones will still be there when we get back. That's a great thing about bones, they never run away.
Alright, Dave, ready to get into minute 62?
Yeah.
As mentioned on minute 61 of Jurassic Park 3, Eric had fallen over, and the baby pteranodons had seen their opportunity to attack. As we open on minute 62, Billy swoops in low on the parachute, trying to get closer, as the baby animals keep on pecking at Eric, and pull the InGen lab coat from him. Further down the canyon, his parents are running up the catwalks, trying to get closer, calling his name. At the 17-second mark, Eric's free of the lab coat, and as the babies bite into it, he jumps from one spire to another, and comes to a dead end, looking down to see the river far below. The babies swarm him again, but in amongst the attack, he can hear Billy yelling for him to jump. He shakes the babies off him, and with all his strength, Eric runs down another set of rocky stairs, and leaps from a spire as Billy passes by, and the two come together. The 32-second mark, we cut back to Paul, as his attempt to rescue Eric is cut short by a missing catwalk in front of him. Behind, Amanda and Grant catch up and look at the vast space between their catwalk and the next, too far to jump. At the 39-second mark, an adult pteranodon swoops in and lands in the catwalk, scaring the adults back. Then it quickly takes flight again and swings around, blocking the adult's escape. It lands on the caged catwalk and falls through and starts to push Grant, Paul and Amanda back towards the opening. At the 52-second mark, we cut back to Billy and Eric as they fly down the canyon with the parachute. Eric can see something behind him, but we don't see it. He just yells out for Billy. We cut to the pteranodons, swooping in low. One slashes the top of the parachute, damaging it. And as we end minute 62, the adult pteranodon in the catwalk continues to push Grant, Paul and Amanda back towards the gap. As we open on minute 62, Eric's sort of getting picked by the babies, and we get a quick cut here as Billy tries to set his shoot and line up his approach, but Eric's still being attacked. And I love here where we've got Eric with the rod puppet sort of CG babies on him, and Billy just swings past as if he's on a crane or something. There's no shot up at the parachute itself.
No, but as he swings by Eric and he's getting attacked, we see Billy, and it looks like they probably got a green screen behind them, I'm thinking, And we get those cliffs of Isla Sorna. It looks like the sun's almost starting to poke through the clouds a bit.
Yeah, and we can start posting some photos of this set, the canyon they built out in the back lot onto the Facebook page. But it is a very tight set, and a lot of the canyon walls we see in it are CG. All the stuff looking up at the roof's all CG as well, just because all the rigging that they had above it to swing them around in and all that. But for the most part, the set looks fantastic here, and I do love this area where the nesting site is. But sometimes we get Billy swinging around or hanging from the parachute, and the wall looks a little bit. It almost takes me back to the Brachiosaur in the original film, just how it's sort of lacking that bit of detail or grain.
But yeah, this rocky crag here is pretty cool. I mean, it looks a lot like the volcanic rock, I mean, it does have that look to it. You can't deny that.
Yep. But then we get one of those CG-looking cuts of Billy as he swings around for trying to make another approach, and that's where we get sort of a shot here too. Everyone's trying to do something at the same time. We got Paul and Amanda running up the catwalks deeper into the canyon here, trying to get to their son and calling out his name. And
you can see the sun kind of starting to shine through there too, and of course the bird poo or the pteranodon poo that's kind of coating the beams here that the cyclone fencing is on.
Yeah, it's one effect they really spread around. They spread that poop around everywhere, which in essence, yes, if these birds are caged up, anyone that's had birds or visited aviaries or anything like that know that they can be messy at times. Even ducks at a pond, that pond bank can get messy as well. But back with Eric, the pteranodon showed their true colours, pulling the lab coat from Eric and taking it off him, and that's the end of the InGen lab coat. We don't see that again. They wanted it. Maybe they had a vendetta against InGen employees, and that's why they're attacking him. But he gets up and jumps to another rock platform, but soon finds he can't go any further. He's sort of at the end of the road, and a bit of a sheer drop down to the ground below.
We do see a nice, good close-up to the rod puppet's head, though, which is really nice because you don't really get to see that much in the movie with these pteranodons. This is about probably the best close-up shot we get of the little babies, and you can almost make out the little teeth they got on their on the beaks.
The teeth that shall not be named or discussed again.
But yeah, like you said, we get up to he starts hopping the pillars again, and you're starting to see the unlike the canyon walls, you can see the pillars have little bits of ferns growing out of them, out of the tops. It almost feels like a Arthur Conan Doyle 1926 The Lost World, the way that if you ever seen that, how the mom pteranodon feeds the hapless heroine to her babies, and they're on top of that mountain crag.
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it in a long time. Even the remake that Discovery or someone did, or HBO, before that went to a cartoon series, to a TV series. But It's something I need to revisit.
I was going to say, another interesting thing here that we see is you see the back of the canyon as we get this shot of Eric standing at the edge of the cliff here. And you can see the netting that loops over the top of the canyon just kind of looks like it's not exactly holding all together there. Like if those pteranodons really wanted to, they could probably try to break out of it, you know?
Yeah, well, a lot of these scenes here where we get Eric or even Billy, when we're sort of at their level or below them looking up, we start to get a lot of the canyon or the aviary roof here.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from the main beams, a lot of the netting in between does look like it's sagging a lot.
Yeah.
And it's sort of hard to... obviously, there must be much vegetation apart from grassland and that on the banks above it. Otherwise, there should be trees and branches and debris all over this netting. And again, the fact that this has supposedly kept these animals contained for 8 years is a bit hard to believe at this point. But even here, as Eric sort of looks down at the water, we sort of get that look up again too of the canyon disappearing further.
Mm-hmm.
From here, I'm guessing back towards the mouth of the canyon and the big dome and the observation area. But we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But the babies catch up to Eric and begin climbing all over him, and sort of a bit of a callback to the Compies and Dita, just force in numbers, being able to overcome someone bigger.
Yeah, they're just swarming all over him, and they're like, he's almost pretty much encased inside of them.
Yeah, Well, it's definitely not as visually as bad as what happened in Dita, because we had Compies hanging onto his lip and his ear and all that sort of thing as well, where I don't know how, with the beak and teeth, how much of a grip they'd be able to have on him. At this point, they're only really grabbing the loose items of clothing and that and hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of cut back to Billy again, as now he's sort of gone and done a U-turn, coming back to make his approach, and supposedly, I'm guessing, pointing back towards the mouth of the canyon as well, because once he grabs Eric, they sort of just keep on heading that way.
Mm-hmm.
But Eric shakes the babies off and starts running down another sort of section of the rock outcrop towards where Billy is, and reaches the end without missing a step and jumps right up to where Billy's sailing by.
And in this wide shot, we actually get a pretty good view of that rocky crag that he's on, and it almost makes me wonder if was that like a CGI? Was it just like a CGI runway that he ran down, or was that actually something they built? You know?
Well, and that's one of the shames with no tabletop book or a lot of behind the scenes photos. We know they built a lot of this set on the sound stages and at the back of Universal.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to bring up the map now. Like, all this was on stage 22, so I'm guessing they must have built some of this and maybe CG extended it, but a lot of it does look real, like really good CG, and I just love the design of it all too. And even looking at the map here too, and as we get to, it's mentioned in the novel as well that that cage catwalk actually leads to this rocky outcrop. So whether they built the cages going to this outcrop thinking this can be the nesting, or making this the nesting ground, with some sort of intention in play, or what was happening there. Okay, it's just something we won't know, unfortunately. But it was on the same set as where Alan and Amanda cross the bridge too and get to that second or that other side, and he sort of wanders around and finds the guano or the poop on the rails as well. So, and we know all that part there was real. So, I can only assume that it was real there.
Yeah.
But also here too, as Eric goes to jump and grabs Billy, some of the pteranodons the babies make a last-ditch effort to leap up and grab him too. And while one does manage to get to him, we see a couple fall away, and the one that has hold of him also sort of loses its grip and falls away too, which, if these things were hopping around chasing after him, it's probably a good assumption that they can't fly yet, and maybe it'd be no different, I suppose, when birds fall out of trees. For the most part, they sort of glide down and apart from being a bit stunned, aren't really too damaged, broken bones or anything. But then when Eric looks over the side of the cliff before, it's water below, not ground, so I don't know how they'd go swimming if they hit the water. But that might explain too why we see the animals leaving the island later on, because all the babies are dead.
Mm-hmm.
But back with Paul, he suddenly stops as he rounds the corner and sees a section of the catwalk missing in front of him, and sort of behind Grant and Amanda run to catch up. And
is it missing? Because when I always thought that it pulled away, like the stress of them running up and down, it caused it the structure to just pull away from itself, you know? Because you can kind of hear a groaning sound.
Yeah, well, they've always got that sound effect playing over as they're running through these damaged sections. But
True.
So yeah, it's unclear whether this has just fallen away recently, because they're sort of running through the areas. You'd think there'd be some sort of vibration that running or going through the structure.
Yeah.
And especially since here they are standing on it, and in next minute when they come back to this spot, it does break away as well. So.
Because I'm looking at this. It almost looks like it's a small ridge that's not clinging directly to the side of the cliff face. It looks like that there's a little bit of a separation there in the cliff. You know?
Well, looking at the map that they've put up for the canyon too, of the shooting locations, there is sort of a little bridge section between. Where it leaves the canyon wall for a little bit and goes out over the open, and maybe this is that spot. But in the novel, when we get here, it's described as Paul can see his son on the rocky outcrop 50 yards away. So that sort of suggests that they are deeper into the canyon, where this little bridge section would be on the. Oh no! Well, further around, it's got a missing section as well. So
that might be
the map itself. Yeah. But Paul's sort of looking there at the gap as the others arrive, and before they can do anything, a pteranodon swoops in low and blocks their path, and it sort of touches down on the catwalk in front of them. But everyone does a smart thing and turns and runs back the other way, and that's when the pteranodon lifts off again, and sort of we follow its field of view as it sort of flies sideways and around a bit of a corner and lands on top of the catwalk, blocking their escape, and sort of putting its beak down through one of those holes in the chain link mesh that we've seen before.
Yeah, clearly it's she, I should say, because I believe these are all meant to be the females. We never actually see the alpha males, though they were designed. They're larger and I think like a bluish gray, whereas these are all meant to be females. Yeah, she sticks her beak pecking at the mesh, and then she lands on the top of it before her weight just bends the bars inward, and she crashes down into the catwalk.
Yeah. And there's probably been no reason before why they'd have to go into the catwalk sections. Assumably they're getting all their food from the river, and nesting up on the platform, the rocks at the end. So. Just having the weight of the animal on top of the structure, knowing how old it is and how sort of fatigued the metal and all that is, it does, burst straight through and lands on the platform in front of them, blocking their escape. But then we cut back to Billy's flying through the canyon, and we got sort of Eric here seeing something behind him and yelling out Billy's name, but he's sort of concentrating on flying at the moment. And we can see the pteranodons that are in flight catching up fast, and it's a little